Losing fat is actually quite simple. That doesn't mean it's easy, but it just means you don't need a lot of complex knowledge to understand how to do it. Now, I'm not a leanest guy, nor am I the smartest regarding weight loss, but I have succeeded multiple times at getting quite lean in the past. If you've been struggling with fat loss, I want to share with you methods that help me stay lean year round and also get a lot leaner at some point, which will also help you get leaner in the easiest way possible. These methods will allow you to lose fat very easily without too much effort, hence why I call them the smartest fat loss techniques. Our main goal is fat loss, so we should firstly understand which factors have the biggest impact on our ability to lose fat. We need to reason from first principles and actually understand the basic fundamental rules of fat loss. We have a law called the law of thermodynamics, which is a law that cannot be broken or further questioned. This law explains that in order for your body to either lose weight or gain weight, its energy balance has to be skewed in one direction or the other. In order to lose weight, your body needs to be in a caloric deficit or burn more calories than you consume, and in order to gain weight, it needs to be in a caloric surplus or burn less calories than you consume. Many like to argue that calories in, calories out doesn't work because hormones are all that matter. Hormones can affect the amount of calories you burn, so in the end it still comes back down to your energy balance. So at a fundamental level, in order for us to lose fat, we need to put ourselves in an energy deficit, which means we need to either reduce the amount of calories we consume on a daily basis or increase the amount of calories we burn on a daily basis. The rest of this video will be focused on giving you very effective methods to achieve either a decrease in calorie consumption, an increase in calorie expenditure, or a decrease in appetite to achieve that decrease in calorie consumption. The first part of the balance is our caloric intake, or how many calories we consume. Our goal here is to reduce the amount of calories we consume in order to lose more fat or lose fat at a more rapid pace. There's a total of 8 methods I'd like to discuss. First is to put a priority on low calorie dense foods. Different foods contain different amounts of calories for the same weight or size. 100 grams of salad contains a lot less calories than 100 grams of peanut butter. A low calorie dense food is simply a food that has a high volume or weight while still having a low amount of calories. Your goal isn't to remove every high calorie food you have in your diet and replace it with low calorie dense foods, because this will most likely make your diet very boring and you will also lack many nutrients your body needs. But if you want to make a diet easier to stick to, you can put a priority on these types of foods. If you do that, you will feel a lot more full and thus have a much easier time sticking to a deficit. Second is to replace high-calorie alternatives with low-calorie alternatives. For example, you could have zero-sugar ketchup instead of normal ketchup. You could have Diet Coke instead of Coca-Cola. Many people like to argue that Diet Coke is unhealthy for us, but I like to argue that both are unhealthy, so might as well take the low-calorie one. You can always use low-calorie options of certain products to help you reduce your caloric intake. Third is to put a priority on real foods. I think everybody intuitively knows that real foods will help you lose weight and be healthier. No one has ever thought that junk foods were better for us. The reason these can help us with weight loss is for a few reasons. 1, they tend to be low-calorie dense foods. 2, they often have more protein in them, which will help with your satiety. We'll cover this later in the video. 3rd, they tend to be higher in fiber, which will also help with your satiety. And number 4, they often contain minerals and vitamins, which will also have that same satiating effect as protein and fiber. In the end, prioritizing real foods like meat, eggs, vegetables, fruits, and so on will mostly affect your appetite, but can also affect your caloric intake as well. Number 4 is to avoid liquid calories. I really want to put an emphasis on this because it can affect your caloric intake massively. First of all, liquid calories is any form of liquid that contains calories. For example, sodas, milkshake, sauces, and so on. The reason we need to be careful of those is because they can very easily make us overconsume on calories. Think about this. Would you have an easier time eating 1,000 calories or drinking 8,000 calories? The answer is obviously 8,000 calories from drinks, because it takes a lot less space in your stomach and therefore still keeps you hungry. So here's what I would do. First of all, try to replace sodas with a low-calorie alternative if you can, or just remove them completely. Second, try to avoid milkshakes altogether. And third, go for seasoning like salt and pepper to give your food taste instead of sauces. If you can apply those 3 things, you'll be able to avoid most liquid calories. Number 5 is to avoid cooking oils. There's often a debate about the health effects of seed oils, and the truth is that we're not sure about whether they're good or bad for our bodies. In any case, I'm not here to discuss the health effects of seed oils, but what I am here for is this. If you've ever turned a cooking oil before, you will realize how ridiculously high in calories it is. If you use them to cook, they can easily increase your caloric intake by 400 to 500 per day. You can always replace cooking oils with cooking sprays. These are like cooking oils, but the amount used will automatically be a lot lower than if you used a normal bottle. 6th method is to reduce fat intake and prioritize other macros. There's 2 reasons for this. First, fats have the highest amount of calories per gram. Protein has 4 calories per gram, carbs also have 4 calories per gram, and fats have 9 calories per gram. Second, fats have the lowest thermic effect. The thermic effect of a macronutrient represents how many calories are needed to digest that nutrient. With protein, your body has to use more energy to digest it, whilst with fat, it barely uses any energy or calories to digest it. It's never really a huge difference, but it can have a slight effect. Now, you still need a minimum amount of fats for health reasons, so I would keep my fat intake to 50 grams a day at least, and then see if I'm going above that number or not. Number 7 is to practice some form of meal timing. There are many different diet schedules out there. Some prefer eating breakfast, lunch, and dinner, some like doing 1 meal a day, and others like doing intermittent fasting. If your goal is to lose weight and cut down, maybe sticking to a specific eating window can help you consume less calories. The most common form is the 16 to 8 eating window, where people eat for 8 hours and fast for 16 hours. Your eating window could start from noon to 8 p.m. for example. With intermittent fasting, people are less likely to overeat because their food is condensed into this 8-hour time window, and they also tend to think less about food throughout the day. So if sticking to a specific eating window can help you lose weight and be in a caloric deficit, go for it. The last method, which I really think everyone should do for a while, is tracking calories. One of the biggest mistakes people make on a cutting journey is heavily underestimating how much they're actually eating. Most people, if they actually tracked how much they ate, would realize that they're way above how many calories they should be eating. I think one of the easiest ways you can track your food intake is with an app like MyFitnessPal. You simply log in foods or scan their barcode, and the app will give you the calories and macros in that food. Now, you don't need to track forever, but for long enough that you start to have the ability to guess how many calories are in different foods. A few years ago, for a month, I tracked all my meals meticulously, wrote down the calories per meal, macros per meal, and measured my total intake at the end of each day. That might seem obsessive, but I became really good at estimating how many calories were in different foods. I wasn't 100% exact, but I could guess with a good level of accuracy how many calories a certain meal contained. This way, you'll always know with decent accuracy whether you're hitting your caloric intake for the day and whether you're consistently hitting that target every day. I understand that tracking calories can seem like a hassle, but I truly think it is of vital importance that you at least track a couple days to give you an idea of how many calories you're actually consuming, and maybe finally make you realize you were underestimating how many calories you consumed every day. Maybe those couple days will make you realize what was wrong this whole time and why you couldn't seem to lose weight. The second part of the balance is our calorie expenditure, or how many calories we burn on a daily basis. This is also called our metabolism. The word metabolism simply represents the total amount of calories we burn on a daily basis and is divided into 4 main parts: RPE, or resting energy expenditure, TEF, or thermic effect of food, NEAT, or non-exercise activity thermogenesis, and EAT, or exercise activity thermogenesis. Our resting energy expenditure represents the total amount of calories we burn from simply existing. In order for our heart to beat, our muscles to stay alive, or our lungs to breathe, we need energy. This is often measured through our body weight and lean mass. The more body weight and lean mass we have, the more calories we will burn at rest. Our thermic effect of food is simply the energy we consume to digest food. To break down the nutrients in the foods we eat, we need energy. Our non-exercise activity thermogenesis is simply the total amount of calories we burn through activity that isn't considered exercise. Often these things include going upstairs, painting a fence, typing on a keyboard, and any other activity that gets your body moving but isn't exercise. Finally, our exercise activity thermogenesis represents all the calories we burn through what people consider exercise: running, biking, weightlifting, swimming, and the list goes on and on. Our REE represents about 60% of our total calories burned throughout the day. Our TEF is about 5 to 15%, depending on how much you eat and what kinds of foods you eat. Our NEAT is about 20 to 25%, and your EAT is about 0 to 15%. Knowing this, there's only really a few methods we can use to burn more calories throughout the day. First, we can build more muscle, because this will increase our lean mass and body weight, and thus increase our REE, or the amount of calories we burn at rest. Our second priority shouldn't be on increasing our exercise or EAT levels, but rather our general activity or NEAT. NEAT, like I mentioned, is any form of activity that isn't exercise. Taking the stairs, typing on a keyboard, playing with your dog, and so on. Just general activity and movement. The reason we should prioritize this over cardio is because of the impact cardio has on our body. Cardio will burn more calories than general activity in the same amount of time, but you wouldn't be able to keep running for 5 hours. However, staying active for 5 hours wouldn't be as much of an issue. The problem here is the effort that cardio requires from you. Therefore, since you can do NEAT for a lot longer than cardio, you will burn more calories in the end. Now, I don't think cardio should be fully removed, which is why it is our next point. The third thing will actually be exercise, but a specific form of it. You could technically start swimming, running, biking, and so on, but I think a much better option is to prioritize something I call leisure activity. This is when you do exercise that doesn't feel like exercise. Instead of running, you could play some basketball with friends or play a tennis match with your partner. Any form of exercise that you personally don't feel is exercise for you. If you start to prioritize these forms of movement, your cardio level will suddenly improve a lot more than what you could ever imagine doing on a treadmill. Finding ways to reduce your appetite throughout the day can really help us achieve that decrease in calorie consumption on a daily basis. For this, I found 5 methods you can use. First is to focus more on consuming protein instead of carbs and fat. There's 3 main reasons for this. First, we need to understand that our protein consumption in a caloric deficit will be very different than if we were at maintenance or in a surplus. When you are cutting or in a deficit, your body is not only getting less calories from food, you also have less body fat and glycogen stores, which your body can use as energy or fuel. Because of that, your body is much more likely to break down muscle tissue and use protein as a source of energy. So during a cutting phase, you need more protein to preserve your current muscle mass. Second is because of an idea called the protein leverage hypothesis, which says that because our body knows that it requires a lot of protein, it will push you to keep eating to get more protein. Even if you ate the same amount of calories, you will be hungrier if you eat a low protein diet than you would be if you ate a high protein diet. Out of all the macronutrients, protein is the most filling of all. If we keep in mind that we need more protein when in a deficit, trying to get more protein than you need is ideal because you will feel less hungry with that increase in protein intake and therefore have an easier time sticking to a caloric deficit. The third reason for increasing your protein intake is because it has the highest thermic effect. Our metabolism was made of 4 components, one of which was our thermic effect of food. In order for our body to digest protein, it needs more energy than when it has to digest fats or carbs. Again, there won't be a massive difference, but it can have a slight effect. Second, a way to reduce appetite is to increase fiber intake. Fiber will, just like food volume, make you more satiated. In order to reduce your appetite, you can always think about increasing the amount of fiber you take in. Those often come from foods like fruits, vegetables, and so on. Thirdly, put a priority on drinking more water throughout the day. Not only is water essential for the functioning of our body, but it also stunts your appetite while being 0 calories. One of the greatest weight loss hacks and ways to reduce your appetite for no caloric cost whatsoever is to simply drink more water. You can think about drinking water just before a meal to make yourself more full and therefore have a harder time eating too much food. Number 4 is to get enough nutrients like minerals and vitamins in general. This kind of follows the idea of the protein leverage hypothesis. Our body knows it requires a certain amount of nutrients, so it will push us to keep eating until we've met our needs. If you put a priority on nutritious foods, often being real foods that are high in other things like fiber and protein, you will have a much easier time staying full. Number 5 is to consider things like caffeine or other stimulants. Caffeine will have 2 different effects on your body. First, it will affect your appetite. Caffeine is known to be an appetite suppressor. It is said that the caffeine in coffee can help reduce appetite, delay stomach emptying, and influence appetite hormones, all of which will help you reduce your appetite. Second, caffeine raises your metabolism, which makes you burn more calories. Since caffeine tends to wake you up and make you more alert, you will naturally move slightly more throughout the time that caffeine is active in your system and therefore increase your NEAT or non-exercise activity thermogenesis. The 6th and last method is to keep yourself busy throughout the day. This is a method you can easily use to reduce how hungry you feel throughout the day. If you've ever had those days where you're constantly doing things throughout the day and at the end you realize you barely ate anything because you were so busy. We don't need to be constantly in do mode because that is probably unhealthy, but it can be a method used to reduce your appetite throughout the day. So if I was trying to lose fat in the easiest way possible, here's what I would do. First, in terms of my diet, I would do intermittent fasting where I only drink water and black coffee with no additives in the morning. Then, once I break my fast, I do it with a high protein meal that also has fibers and the nutrients that you need and minimizes high calorie dense foods that can easily increase the amount of calories I'm consuming. Throughout the rest of the day, I would drink lots of water to keep me full, and at the end of the day, I would have another meal that is high in protein and other nutrients. In my 2 meals, I would try to get the right amount of fat I need, but not have too much. I would cook my meals in either butter or with cooking sprays, I would season my meals with salt and pepper, and I would avoid liquid calories as much as possible and prioritize water instead. In terms of calories burned, I would try to stay active throughout the day, especially through walking, and I wouldn't really do any cardio except for leisure cardio with friends. Then I would mostly prioritize my gym workouts to preserve any muscle mass I hold and maybe build some in the process. Now, I don't expect you to follow this exactly because for a lot of people this will be unsustainable, and we know that you can lose fat with these methods if you do them. Implement the things you personally want to try and see if you enjoy them. So, that's it for this video. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you learned something. If your goal with this video was to get visible abs, I've got a different video on the smartest way to get abs if you're really serious about your goal.